running it, Gary Gensler?
I have compiled the best clips of Brad Garlinghouse from XRP Las Vegas. The footage is courtesy of @BankXRP on X. I would love to just play the clips straight through uninterrupted, but TikTok will remove this video if I'm not adding commentary, so for that I apologize. So clip 1 is how Brad is satirically calling out for a boycott for the Las Vegas Sphere because they refuse to play the Ripple ad.
The boycott of the Sphere. And I'm going to tell you why. We tried to do XRP on the Sphere. We thought that'd be pretty cool. They said they would do Bitcoin and ETH and not XRP.
Who's running it, Gary Gensler?
And the way I look at it, thank you to our chief marketing officer at Ripple. It actually ended up saving us money because we spent all that money up and down the strip. It's like it worked out better.
Did they say why?
Someone was making a judgment within that organization, and we thought about it kind of escalating, but honestly, when that stuff happens, I'm just like, you know what?
Obviously, that was Brad giving out some satire. He doesn't really want us to boycott the Sphere, but come on, next year we really should push the Sphere to host a Ripple ad.
We have fought a number of good fights. You know, as some of you guys know, I sometimes refer to the XRP army as the XRP family. Yeah. But sometimes we have to go to war, and there's the XRP army.
And the army shows up.
Yes.
I did want to congratulate you on 11 years as CEO of Ripple.
And congratulations, Brad, on 11 years.
Like the difference of Paul Atkins to Gary Gensler, it's just like, wow. You know, in less than a year, they provided structured clarity around a whole bunch of stuff. And you wonder, like, Gary Gensler was there for 4+ years. Why didn't you take the time? You know, like, you just hired more lawyers to go sue people as opposed to actually, let's write down how we view this. And even if I disagree with it, at least it's clear. And in retrospect, you know, I really do think I don't really understand why they made some of the decisions they did in that era.
Anyone following XRP's legal battle over the years knows that the new SEC with Paul Atkins is worlds better than what it used to be.
Some of you guys know I wore a t-shirt to a speaking engagement at a Cantor Fitzgerald conference in Miami. I wore a sport coat, but underneath the sport coat I wore a t-shirt that did say F the SEC.
F the SEC, Brad's a rebel with a cause.
How do you think about Ripple's role, Ripple's engagement with the XRP community these days? Ripple is very much involved with institutions and enterprises these days as you've come back to the US, as you're growing, but how do you see your role in the XRP community?
Look, I always thought it was kind of funny and strange that people questioned Ripple's commitment to XRP. Today, Ripple is still the largest holder of XRP on the planet. We are the most interested party in seeing XRP be successful. We will continue to be the most interested party in seeing XRP be successful. And so whenever I read people kind of questioning that, I just think, like, it doesn't make sense logically, and it's obviously not what I've said publicly. And Ripple's extremely committed to how do we make XRP the most useful digital asset, how do we make it the most liquid digital asset, how do we make it the most trusted digital asset. And if we can do those things at the same time, do those things by selling products and services to financial institutions, to capital markets around what we now call Ripple Prime. I mean, Ripple Treasury has been on a tear. And
that last clip is amazing, by the way. This really addresses Brad's post about XRP being the North Star for Ripple and everyone questioning their loyalty to XRP. Fraudsters and those spreading fear about XRP really need to listen to this as well, because their main argument is that Ripple doesn't care about XRP, when that's just fundamentally not true.
I think, yeah, you make a good point. I think a lot of people have, you're right, questioned Ripple's loyalty, as it were, to XRP. I think when you rolled out the stable coin, people were like, oh, is this going to be the replacement for XRP?
Yeah.
And
look, I get it. I also, and maybe this is somewhat frustrating to the XRP community sometimes, but I don't feel the need to constantly update the whole world about our strategy, because to some degree that just informs people who want to compete against us. And so, look, we're going to do things that may not at first blush make crystal clear sense, but I swear to you, even if it doesn't have a direct line from point A to point B being good for XRP, It may be point A to point B to point B to point C. It's all in service of how do we do things that expand, grow, in driving liquidity, utility, and trust in XRP. And I will keep saying those things. And we'll keep building around that. I mean, Ripple now is 1,500 people strong. We're having a record year in a ton of different ways.
And once again, clarification to all those who keep saying that RLUSD will replace XRP. That is not now or ever been the roadmap for Ripple. RLUSD is a tool from A to B to C to connect everything to benefit XRP in the end. This clip is a clear agenda for their future plans for tokenization, with Brad admitting that he has a focused interest in bond settlement.
The tokenization of various asset classes, I think, is inevitable. There's a bunch of industries I don't know that much about. I read about things like bond settlement. Bond settlement is slow, it is arcane, and it is absurd to think about how that works in a world of the internet. And I think it's only a matter of time before you see things like bond settlement move to on-chain. And to the extent Ripple can help catalyze those things to leverage the XRP ledger, fabulous. But again, I don't want to leave people the impression it is going to be a multi-chain world. The XRP ledger is exceptionally good at some things and not good at some other things. And that's okay, like that, almost by design, like that's good. Because if you try to be all things to all people, you're gonna be less good at other things. You're gonna slow the transaction speed down. You're gonna impact cost per transaction. You're gonna, we have an amazing underlying infrastructure that's really good for certain things, and let's invest and go after those things.
Brad highlights clearly that even if the Clarity Act doesn't pass, XRP still has legal clarity as a commodity. The Clarity Act is good for the industry, but XRP is just fine.
And under this bill, I believe Ripple has actually been grandfathered in as a commodity because of the ETF status.
Yeah.
What does this mean for Ripple?
Well, it's grandfathered in two ways. And the most important thing, I know Ashish talked about this. People, I want everyone here to make sure they understand. XRP has clarity. XRP fought a very painful fight to get clarity. It's a big deal. We have a federal judge said, in her opinion, XRP in and of itself is not a security. Boom. We have clarity. That's what we care about. I mean, XRP is going to be okay no matter what. I mean, obviously, the SEC, the CFTC announcement around the guidance was really positive. Yeah. But again, you got to always go back to an independent federal judge. She was clear. She happened to be an appointee by a Democrat. So it's kind of like, look, XRP, you guys, good news. We're good. XRP has clarity.
This is the last clip, and he highlights Ripple's political support is based purely on crypto promotion. And he also highlights when he thinks the Clarity Act will pass.
Is Ripple thinking about making similar donations this time in the midterms?
Look, we will continue to lean into pro-innovation, pro-crypto candidates on both sides of the aisle. And you know, I have been very appreciative that we have in the White House a very pro-crypto administration. I mean, I think the laws are passed by Congress, and we want to see bipartisan support. I've said this a lot publicly, but as you know well, the fact that a technology became partisan is just madness. It's just crazy to me. It's almost like saying, I've said this before, email is a partisan issue. Like, if somehow you hate email because you're a Democrat, but you like email because you're a Republican, it makes no sense.
I've seen you sit down for interviews with in the last couple of weeks has asked you your prediction for when Clarity will pass. So I'm going to be no different. When is it going to pass?
Oh boy. I feel like I already answered that.
You did, but you didn't give a day. You didn't give a month.
Let's say basically April 30th. I will give it to the end of the third week in May. If I don't know what the exact date that is. If it doesn't get out of committee by the end of the third week in May, I think we're in real trouble. If it gets out of committee, we're good. Because it will pass the Senate if it gets out of committee. There is bipartisan support at the Senate level if it gets out of committee.
You're never going to give it up for Brad Garland.
Please like, comment, and share this video. It helps the algorithm, which has not been very friendly to me lately. I hope you guys are bullish for the future, because this conversation with Brad has really boosted my confidence. Wealth, love, and authenticity to you all.